Oh, hello everyone. Sad couple of days. Hello everyone, my name is Chris Quinlan. Welcome to Melbourne Musos Facebook Live. I'll take the heavenly angels out. And the thunder and lightning. And, oh boy, Friday the 13th, eh? Ooh, it's living up to its reputation. Oh. Today's show is in dedication to my favourite guitarist, Jeff Beck. I often wonder, it crossed my mind to maybe do a bit of guitar. How could I even get close? How could any of us get close to what he could do? I'm going to do a bit of an extra thing tonight in loving memory of the great man. Because some of what I'm doing now, some of the solos, just with the triggers. Later on I'm going to overlay some editorial just on his life and stuff, of which I'll do right now. Because this is essentially a drum orientated show, I'm going to be talking a lot about the wonderful drummers that were with him throughout his career. I can't mention them all. I'm going to stick to a best of, I suppose, and play some of the things that really stick out. I'll take the, pardon my back to you, I'll take the triggers out just for now. Put the snares on, I'll start reading. Okay, stick with me folks, maybe, listen along, play some of the albums. Oh my Lord, there we go. Jeff Beck. Jeffrey Arnold Beck, 24th of June 1944 to the 10th of January 2023, was an English guitarist who rose to prominence as a member of the rock band the Yardbirds and afterwards founded and fronted the Jeff Beck Group and Beck Bokert and Apis. In 1975, he switched to an instrumental style of music with focus on an innovative sound, and his releases span genres and styles ranging from blues rock, hard rock, jazz fusion, and a blend of guitar rock and electronica. Some of the stuff was absolutely incredible, I tells you. Beck was ranked in the top 5 of Rolling Stone and other magazines' lists rankings of the greatest guitarists. He was often called a guitarist's guitarist. Rolling Stone described him as one of the most influential lead guitarists in rock. Although he recorded 2 successful albums in 75 and 76 as a solo act, Beck did not establish or maintain the sustained commercial success of many of his contemporaries and bandmates. He recorded with many artists. Beck earned wide critical praise and received the Grammy Award for Best Rock Instrumental Performance 6 times, count them, and Best Pop Instrumental Performance once. In 2014, he received the British Academy's Ivor Novello Award, thanks Ivor, for outstanding contribution to British music. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, first as a member of the Yardbirds, 1992, and secondly as a solo artist in 2009. There you go. I could keep reading forever. That's just the first bit. There's a bit for me to get through, but I'll get through it. Basically what happens is what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a few things from a drummer's perspective of the great man and what he was able to do with his business. Now, I'll go to page number 2, my little sheet notes over here. What goes on is with the Yardbirds, he and Jimmy Page worked together in that one. I'll read about that in more detail in a little bit. But really, after Hendrix, there were the big three, maybe four if you include Richie Blackmore, and maybe even five if there's Pete Townsend gets a mention of The Who. But the big three acknowledged coming out of the Yardbirds was first Eric Clapton, then at Jimmy Page's recommendation, told the Yardbirds, have a crack at my mate Jeff Beck, kind of thing. So there's that. And then Jimmy Page ended up being with the Yardbirds as well. A short stint with them together. What a super group that would have been if they were together. But they only lasted 9 months and didn't really record too much together, apart from Antonioni's Blow Up, the very famous film where you can see Jeff Beck wrecking his guitar at the club sequence with David Hemingway as the star. There you go, of that film. I've got it in there, and I'll put it up here. Tonight I'm going to do nothing but there, and just have pictures of Mr. Beck. And what it is the first thing, when he came out with Truth, that's his first solo album after he left the Yardbirds. There's a bit of a funny story to that, which I'll relate in a second. He did, in Truth, there's a forerunner to Led Zeppelin. Basically, it's Led Zeppelin, but with Jeff Beck and Keith Moon on drums. And it's Beck's Bolero. So the first thing I should do is probably just show you a bolero, seeing there's some kind of modicum of teaching in this show when I'm not playing the fool. I'm not playing the fool today, but what goes on is a bolero is, you've got two types. You've got Ravel's bolero, but you also have the standard Afro-Cuban bolero, which is the one that they use on Beck's Bolero, and it's like... And then Keith Moon comes in halfway and bang! In his own inimitable, indubitably style, if that's a word. And there you go. And incredible, Keith Moon. There you go. When the Jeff Beck group was starting out, you had a little list of stars. On that particular track, you had basically Led Zeppelin and Keith Moon. Ooh, fantastic. There you go. And so there was Truth, Beckola, and then there's the funny story about Woodstock, because they were slotted in to play Woodstock, and that would have just gone like that with what they were doing. But the group disbanded. They cancelled out, which is a little part of Jeff Beck's career. He was always constantly moving, whether by... he just, a little bit like Miles Davis. I have to change, I have to move on, I have to do this. And of course a little bit of, let's just say, temperament, okay, sort of thing. He was always he was always searching. And he always said there has to be a bit of chaos in music. And he's certain, you can see it in his guitar playing, that kind of thing. So there's that. And then what happened is that with that, the rhythm section of Vanilla Fudge, you keep me hanging on, coming a piece, and Tim Bogert, Vanilla Fudge was starting to come to an end, and there was talk about starting it up. But then Jeff Beck got into a bad car accident and sadly fractured his skull and was out of action for a while. It was a bad accident. And that's the other side of his life. When he got sick of music for a while there, he'd do up his cars, his hot rods. There you go. And but he wasn't well. Anyway, when he got better, Bogert and a piece went off and made Cactus. They were pretty big in America, not much so everywhere else, but anyway. And there was that. And so he started up the Jeff Beck group with Cozy Powell, who was one of my favourite drummers. A lot of people might know Cozy Powell from Rainbow, Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. And he was playing, his drum solo was very famous for him doing the drum solo to Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. And it's like, he's famous for 1812. Have a looky with your gumboots on. Have a looky with your gumboots on. Da 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 da. Stuff like that. You gotta try and keep a smile on your puss. And that was, I remember going to see both Rainbow concerts with the big rainbow and all that. Man on a silver mountain and all that business, which was sort of reworking of the Burn riff sort of thing, if people know what I'm on about with that. But Cozy Powell with 2 albums, Rough and Ready, and then the Jeff Beck group, and fantastic stuff. That really got funky, because there's a bit of Jeff Beck that is funky. He was a funky musician, and he loved all that stuff. He had a close association with Stevie Wonder. You wouldn't think so, but he did. And when that came to an end, and then and Cactus came to an end with Bogert and Appice, they started up Beck, Bogert and Appice as a trio. Great group. I've got their album plus the live in Japan special recording one. Fantastic concert, but they just didn't quite have all the material together. But what they did do, they just had pure musicianship. Some of the stuff is amazing. Carmen Appice at the time was the drummer going around. Like he's not mentioned as much as, say, Bonham or Ian Pace, but he was right there with them, and even precursored some stuff with Vanilla Fudge before, Led Zeppelin even formed up in about 67, 68. You can hear some of the licks and you go, oh, along the lines of Ginger Baker and all that sort of is. So there's that. And one of the things is Superstition, the way they did Superstition, the famous Stevie Wonder thing, because what would happen is it was a little bit more proggy in its own little way, because you'd have now Beck, Bogert and Appice. That was a Rough as Guts version. That's better. Oh, shit. There you go. Screwed that up. Anyway, I always call my mistakes out. There you go. So there's all that. So it's got that real funky syncopated version on. It's really good. And there you go. So that's Beck, Bogert and Appice. They were supposed to have a second album out, but it got shelved. And there's a certain kind of, we could have had a second album, but Jeff Beck went on to start his fusion side of things with, and then Blow by Blow came out, which is his Grammy Award-winning album. And what happened with that is that the funny story from George Martin, the fifth Beatle, the very famous producer, he recalled the story that Jeff Beck was really fastidious with his guitar solos and his overdubs and all that, and so he kept going back into the studio to, I think I can get this solo a little bit better, George, and all that. And the story that George Martin relates is, I got a call from Jeff Beck one day, and he said, George, on that track, I think I can play the solo a bit better. Can I come in and just overdub it again? And he said, Jeff, the album's already in the shops. Whoops, too late. Has to live with it now. Anyway, there you go. I have to live with that blue that I made before. I'm going to do it again. I got it now. Now I'm going to talk about that a little bit because it's going to precursor what I'm going to go into next. What happens is there's a wonderful little lick that I've often brought up. It's I've called it the John Bonham lick and all this sort of stuff. But when I'm going into Wired, there's the wonderful drummer. There's a few drummers. I can't mention them all. I won't be able to remember them all. There's a lot of them. But one of the famous ones was Narada Michael Walden, not long out of the Mahavishnu Orchestra's second incarnation. And, it's albums like The Visions of the Emerald Beyond and all that. Jeff Beck regarded John McLaughlin of Mahavishnu Orchestra as he must be the best guitarist on the planet because of all the different styles he does. So there you go. So that's Jeff Beck giving a tip of the hat to John McLaughlin. But out of that was Narada Michael Walden, and one of the little licks that is wonderful is the idea of having the hi-hat and the left foot on the hi-hat and the right hand on the snare. I've done it before, but I'm going to do it in reference to dear Jeff Beck and Narada Michael Walden. So if you're playing the hi-hat with the right hand and then put in a single stroke roll, every time you put in the left hand onto the hi-hat, you're catching it while it's coming up. See? And that brings us to Wired and a song on there called Lead Boots. Narada Michael Walden's drumming on that track is legendary, really. It's the most explosive bit of drumming. You could almost, it's like a horse about to gallop and you're trying to hold on. It's explosive in the take that's on there. And what happens is that lick is on there. So you get the riff. If I put the track on, it's going to get bumped by all the social medias, for copyright infringement. It's quite a common thing. I'm even getting copyright pings for Seagulls, which is sound effects on Final Cut Pro editing suite. Someone decides to copyright it and pinch your royalties. There's real parasites out there, and I'm not going to go down the editorial of that. But that's why I'm not going to sort of press the button and put it on, because it'll just get pinged. So I'll just hum it badly, okay? So da-da-da-dum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-da. So there it goes. Now just notice that when I go to the left hand, I'll play that a bit better. Okay, so there you go. So there's that one. So what happens there? Ba-da-da-bump. It's in 4/4. Ba-da-da-bump, ba-dun-dun-da-da. You follow. This is one of the greatest clues in prog rock. Narada Michael Walden and the first guy where my head blown was Barrymore Barlow. Dear Barrymore Barlow of Jethro Tull during the Passion Play. Oh, Minstrel in the Gallery, Songs from the Woods, you name them, they're all classics, but follow the melody. So it's like da-da-da-da, ba-da-bum, ba-da, ba-da-da-da, ba-da. So what you've got is, I'll do it a bit more sedately. Oh, what am I doing? There it is there. So just following the melody, I'm just humming. You see? That's what goes on. And that makes you more melodic and all that. Even if you're playing a basic beat like I did this the other week with less is more or less. I got that the other day. I didn't know whether it was a joke or not. I thought, really? Did you watch my show? Comment. Hey, see? Melody. Beautiful. There you go. And then the second section of Lead Boots, which is, I'll talk about that. That's in 7, and it's subdivided in 4 and 3. And what goes on with that is the 4 part is just a normal rock beat. So it goes bum, bum, diddle it up. Then you go to 3/4, which is 1 and 2 and 3 and up, like that. So you get bum, bum, diddle it up, bum, 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 da da da, bum, bum, diddle it up, bum, 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 da da da, bum, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Then it's back up, bang, down, bang, up. Bum, bum, bing, up, bum, bum, bum. There you go. That's the second part. That's Lead Boots. Oh, what a track. It's off that album there. There you go. And there it is. That's Narada Michael Walden. There you go. That's fantastic. And then what happened then was he went out on tour with all of that. Jan Hammer looms large, the famous keyboard player with Mahavishnu Orchestra, first incarnation, and the one with Billy Cobham in it, and Jan Hammer, and he is famous for the music to Miami Vice, if you remember that, in the 80s, all the electronic business. And even before then, I've got an album there, I think it's with Jack DeJohnette on ECM Records, so he used to be quite out there. And then, you know, but he went on tour with the Jan Hammer Group. And that's Jeff Beck and the Jan Hammer Group live. That's the one I saw in 1976. I got to see Frank Zappa and Jeff Beck, Festival Hall, 1976. And if anyone was at that gig, you might recall the quadraphonic sound. It's the best Festival Hall ever sounded because they had speakers up the back, so you could actually hear everything in quadraphonic. We call it 5.1 or 7.1, 7.2, whatever you want to call it these days, but good old quadraphonic sound, and there you go. And I always remember the duet that Jeff Beck and the violinist Stephen Kindler, I don't even need to go to my notes for that, did this duet, and it was just, again, the word explosive. It was just absolutely amazing. And then they did things like, it's just, you just go get the live album. It's wonderful. And that's that one. So that's about 77 into 78. And then, of course, that finished and away we went. And then what he had then was There and Back. And the drummer for that was a young Simon Phillips. Oh, my Lord, my God, Simon Phillips, what a gun. And on drums. And what happened with that album is that it all came together for a little while there. Jeff Beck was rehearsing with Stanley Clarke, the very famous bass player of Return to Forever and a few other things. And the great drummer Jerry Brown. I used to use his sticks all the time, once upon a time, Jerry Brown's signature sticks. There you go. And short taper, very beefy stick for a funky player. It just went pop, made the snare drum go pop. Fantastic. And what it was I don't know what happened there, but out of those sessions and everything else that happened, he came up with the personnel for There and Back with the young Simon Phillips. And one of the great tracks off There and Back is a track called Space Boogie. And that is the boogaloo pattern made famous by Billy Cobham from his Spectrum album in 1973. Now, Jeff Beck is so influenced with things like that he was actually playing some of those tracks when he came out. Play one track. God, I forget the name of it. Anyway, what it is, he played one of the tracks as a cover. Now, the boogaloo pattern is essentially, think of Hot for Teacher. You know, that's where Alex Van Halen got it from. So you've got your... There's that. Now, what I do with that is I do a left foot start because of the hi-hat idea, which I've just explained. Put that over to the left kick, Now, if you have a close listen to the opening intro, that's pretty much the beat through Space Boogie by, as I said, Simon Phillips. And he ended up being the drummer to the Stars. You know, he played with Pete Townsend a lot, to the point where he was the drummer for the reformed Who in the late 80s. Before Zach Starkey took over, Ringo Starr's son, as the drummer for such a long time. Simon Phillips was there. And as I said, Pete Townsend. He was basically the dude, that kind of thing. And one of the things he did with that Boogaloo pattern is when you hear the opening bars, you'll hear this flutter. You'll hear this on over the top of the double bass drum. So you get that. Flutter. Here. Now that's made up of right, left, left. So and right, left. So right, left, right, left. One hand on the right, do the same stuff. Do the windmill. Oi! That's Simon Phillips. I'm going to go back to reading for a little bit now. So I'm doing a fair bit of drumming from, I'm just talking about Jeff Beck from a drummer's point of view. He loved chaos. He certainly got it. It was wonderful. The music, what he was able to do with that guitar is amazing. I'm sincerely hoping that there's going to be similar shows like this, but from a guitarist perspective. But I don't know many people who could honestly pull it off with what he could do with the whammy bar and all that stuff. It's just uncanny what he could do. Anyway, I'm going to keep on reading for a little bit here. Beck cited Les Paul as the first electric guitar player who impressed him. Beck said that he first heard an electric guitar when he was 6 years old and heard Les Paul playing How High the Moon on the radio. He asked his mother what it was. She replied, "It was an electric guitar and it's just all tricks." And then apparently he said, "Well, that's for me." Oh, isn't he wonderful? That's for me. It's all tricks. It's all bullshit. Yeah, it's mine. That's for me. Can you imagine 6 years old? Mom, I want to play that. No! That happened to me. Mum and Dad signed me up for violin when I was 10. Oh! I had one of those me teachers. Me. Like that. And I'm going, cat dying. And then I said, Mum, I want to play drums. No, you're not. It's all rubbish. What's that clip going around? A drummer? You're marrying a drummer? I love him and I shall marry him. Oh, I've got. Hello, Marley, my little baby. The set's just been crashed with the pooch. He'll probably start barking in a minute. Anyway, there we go. Cliff Gallup, lead guitarist with Gene Vincent. A bebop-a-lula, she's my baby. And the Blue Caps was also an early musical influence, followed by B.B. King and Steve Cropper. Beck considered Lonnie Mack a rock guitarist who was unjustly overlooked and a major influence on him and many others. There you go. All right. Oh, there's so much. Look, I can't read it all. Do your best. Just type his name in. There you go. But I'll keep on going. In March 1965, Beck was recruited by the Yardbirds to succeed Eric Clapton on the recommendation of fellow session musician and schoolboy chum Jimmy Page, who had been their initial choice. The Yardbirds recorded most of their top 40 hit songs during Beck's short but significant 20-month tenure with the band, allowing him only one full album, which became known as Roger the Engineer. Willis Roger. titled Over Under Sideways Down in the US, a very famous song. Released in 1966. In May 66, Beck recorded an instrumental titled Beck's Bolero, which I just played, or played the Bolero for you. Rather than members of the Yardbirds, he was backed by Page on 12-string rhythm guitar, Keith Moon on drums, John Paul Jones on bass, and Nicky Hopkins on piano. That's a who's who. What a supergroup. In June, Page joined the Yardbirds, at first on bass and later on as second lead guitar. This dual lead guitar lineup was filmed performing an adaptation of Train Kept A-Rolling titled Stroll On for the 1966 Antonini film Blow Up, which I mentioned before. I'm repeating myself. Okay, there you go. Beck was fired during a US tour for being a consistent no-show, as well as difficulties caused by his perfectionism and explosive temper. It was a bit of a sad time, I suppose. In 1967, he recorded several solo singles for pop producer Mickey Most, including Hi-Ho Silver Lining and Tallyman, which also included his vocals. He then formed the Jeff Beck Group, which included Rod Stewart on vocals, Ronnie Wood on bass, Nicky Hopkins on piano, and Ainsley Dunbar on drums, replaced by Mickey Waller. The group produced 2 albums, which I mentioned before, Truth and then Beckola, 1968-69. And there you go. So there's a bit of that for you there. One of the funny things with that, I'll jump a little bit there, but when he received his Hall of Fame induction for being in the Yardbirds, as part of his speech, there it is there. The Yardbirds were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1992. In Beck's acceptance speech, he humorously noted that, "Someone told me I should be proud tonight, but I'm not, because they kicked me out. They did. Fuck 'em." On you, Jeff. He finally got his revenge, sweet revenge. Yeah, you can all go and get nicked. I got sacked, so get nicked. There you go. There it is. And he did the same thing later on when he put out the Flash album, getting back on track with his discography, because after There and Back, the next one was Flash in 1985. And the big hit single from that was People Get Ready with Rod Stewart on vocals. Where according to Jeff Beck, they have They have a love-hate relationship. He loves me, but I hate him. On you, Jeff. Why are you always so cranky? There you go. I'm going to play a little bit now. That's enough talking for a little bit. And yeah, it's a bit of a longer show. I should be already finished, but. I hope you picked the influence in that kind of thing. I hope you picked up the motifs. There it is. Oof. I'll keep reading for a bit. Oi! Where was I up to? Jeff Beck, 80s. Flash. People get ready. That's what it is. Love-hate relationship. That's what it was. There you go. 1990s. Oh, Terry Bozzio comes into the fore. Again, one of my favourite drummers. There you go. With Jeff Beck's Guitar Shop. The first album to feature Beck as a fingerstyle guitarist. At some point between Flash in 1985 and Jeff Beck's Guitar Shop in 1989, he dropped the pick and went on to have this style. Now, he's a drummer trying to explain a bit of guitar. I do play guitar. But he would, when you see close-up things, basically the style is something akin to he picks with his thumb. His little finger is wrapped around the whammy bar, and his ring finger is on the volume control. So he can get these incredible, beautiful swells. And in Eric Clapton's words, with Jeff Beck, it's just all in his hands, okay? There's talk, my Zappa mate up in Sydney is quite famous for his story, where when he went and saw Jeff Beck, same time I did, when was it, 2009 or 10? For me it was the Palais. I was 10 rows from the front with my prog rock mates. Okay, Kev, Ange, John, Matthew, mwah, mwah, mwah. You know, we always get together. We're together just the other week, first time in a while because of COVID. Woo! Anyway, there it is. But what it is Les tells the story. If you're watching, Les, hello. I'm pinching your story. I'm borrowing or I'm giving you due credit for the story. Les Rankin is a wonderful guitarist, and that's his job, is working on guitars. He's a guitar tech and all that business, and guitar man. And he said, I looked at him all night. He used the one guitar and he didn't touch the machine heads once, apart from one knock at the beginning. Everything else is in his hands. Because of the whammy bar, if the strings went out of tune, he just bend it back in tune again. And Jeff Beck has this uncanny ability. I was saying this to my mate Marcus the other day because I was just trying to explain how he could play guitar. And one of his famous things with the whammy bar and his way of bending strings and stuff. Now, this is coming from a drummer, so there you go. But he could play one note, and together with the whammy bar and his bending, he could get near an octave. He could drop it down, he could pull it up, he could bend it at the same time. And when you're hearing some things like his versions of the Beatles' A Day in the Life, when you're hearing Nessun Dorma, I have to watch myself with that, and things like some of the covers that he does, like Somewhere Over the Rainbow and things, and he just has like I have the apps which I mentioned last week, Air, and where the Heavenly Angels sing. So he has his keyboard player just play, just like the pads, just the big chords, and you just get spellbound, absolutely spellbound with what he could do with sometimes just one note, the whammy bar, his instrument, which his mum called a bag of tricks. Well, that's for me. That's my instrument, Mum. No, you're not. Marrying a drummer? Oh, my Lord. Oh, he's marrying a guitarist. That's even worse. Anyway, there you go. And then what happens then? Look at all my notes here. How am I ever going to get through all this on a show and just whatever? Anyway, there you go. So that's what goes on. And, all right, so there you go. One of the famous lineups that he had included a wonderful, talented Australian bass young lady by the name of Tal Wickenfeld, with Vinnie Colaiuta on drums. Oh, live at Ronnie Scott's and all those ones there. And just magic happened. And they were together for a long time. They were really, really wonderful band. And there you go. So lots of stuff there. Incredible. So there's all that. And then what happens then is lots of stories to be had. All this biz. The world tour that he did in 2010 had Narada Michael Walden on drums, Rhonda Smith on bass. That was wonderful. That's the aforementioned, the one we went to at the Palais and stuff like that. And there you go. Incredible stuff. There you go. I should start to wrap the show up to a certain point. I'm still going to play a little bit because I'm using it for other things later on. I'm going to be doing other things. And so I'm going to keep on playing for a little bit with as few mistakes as possible. There you go. But the latest thing, by the way, Loudhailer, Emotion and Commotion is the one with Nessun Dorma on it. And there you have that bit. And then Loudhailer in 2016. And then just in the year past, he and Johnny Depp collaborated. And one of the things that they did was Isolation, John Lennon's song, which they decided to put out because of COVID. That kind of, everything that we've all had to go through over the last couple of years. So there's one quote about that. We weren't expecting to release it so soon, but given all the hard days and true isolation that people are going through in these challenging times, we decided now might be the right time to let you all hear it. There it is there. Style and influence, I'll get into that, described by Rolling Stone magazine as one of the most influential lead guitarists in rock. Beck cited his major influences as Les Paul. That's all tricks. The Shadows, Cliff Gallup. He did a whole album. I've got it. Hot Legs, I think it's called. I've got the CD out the back up. There it is there. Cliff Gallup, who was, the aforementioned Bebopalula. There you go. Ravi Shankar, of all people. Roy Buchanan. He was everyone's favourite there for a while. Chet Atkins, Django Reinhardt, Steve Cropper, and Lonnie Mack. Beck said, John McLaughlin, I've already said this. Beck said, John McLaughlin has given us so many different facets of the guitar and introduced thousands of us to world music by blending Indian music with jazz and classical. I'd say he was the best guitarist alive. There you go. Technique and equipment, I've already mentioned that. One of his other famous ones, apart from his wonderful white Stratocaster, his signature one, he also plays the Telecaster. And there's the famous story where he had one of the real early ones, an Esquire, and he, I can't remember the person, was it Seymour Duncan, the man? The pickup man? Did he sell it to him? I maybe just double check on that. But basically, he sold it to him, and as he walked out the door, he realised he made the mistake of his life, and he's been wanting the guitar back. Everyone said, no, you don't get it back. That kind of thing. Anyway, because I love my Telecaster. There you go. There it is there. And that's just about it with the biography. Just what he could do is amazing. As you can probably tell in between the lines here, it's a very sad day. And some of these people loom larger. They take you through time. Some of those times I quoted. Some of those times were very hard for some people. Various reasons, and you just get lost in the music of Jeff Beck and the people who you grow up with. A lot like everyone was putting up the anniversary clips of David Bowie the other day. And now here we are, taking in Jeff Beck. He died suddenly the other day. Suddenly, quickly, from bacterial meningitis, which even here in Australia we're getting warnings for because it's on the rise. So please look after yourselves.